Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm your host for the first hour, Tim Hayes, and today is Thursday, April 25th, 2019. We're here to once again entertain your comments and questions, teach people, assist them in building expertise in using the powerful tools available at whyagain.org. If you go to that webpage and click on the link that says Start Here or the red and white bullseye, it'll take you to a page where you can download Chapter 24 of Dr. Rice's book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again?, the latest version of the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet or Worksheet process, which contains the primary tool in this work, the ancient Aramaic tool of forgiveness, which is a completely inside job. It's an idea of going inside myself and removing what does not belong in my system, removing any of the energies that feed me to create fear, hostility, bitterness, grief, resentment, and restore my easy, flowing awareness to my true nature as the energy of love. The acronym I use for that is TOPCAP, which is Total, Perfect, Conscious, Active, Present Love. And we call people to observe in this work that you are total, perfect, active, present love, and you're simply not as conscious of it as it would be beneficial for you to be. And so all of the tools, all of the radio shows, all of the support groups that we engage in are designed to assist people in returning the focus of their conscious awareness to their true nature, and then put the conscious back in TOPCAP, to put the conscious back in total, perfect, active, present love, and to restore yourself to total, perfect, conscious, active, present love. You are, as you are hearing these words, as you are breathing the air on this planet, you are the extension of a creative energy in form. And the more you can become directly aware of that, the easier it is for you to let go of everything that's less than that, restore your awareness to your breath, reconnect with the energy that's actually animating you, and move through what would be normally some of the more constricting and confounding situations in your life with greater and greater ease. That's the goal of the application of these tools. That's what's been happening in my life over the years as I've applied these actively in my life. And that's what we're inviting everyone to do on a daily basis. Step into the active application of these tools as a way to do daily emotional hygiene, daily mental and emotional hygiene, just like we do our physical hygiene, most of us anyway, on a daily basis rather intensely. So, I just want to remind people that coming up on Monday, we have an interview scheduled with Corinne Zupko. So if you know somebody who is struggling with anxiety and or has any facility or awareness of Course in Miracles and Way of Mastery, and has those two things in common, struggles with anxiety and awareness of those tools, that would be an excellent thing to refer them to. Either the live recording or the live show, which is going to happen on Monday, or the recording as it's available in the archives. And the call is still out there for people to suggest others that we might interview. We have an upcoming, we're in the process of scheduling Dale Allen Hoffman to do an interview, and we're in the process of scheduling J.M., who's the individual who channeled the Way of Mastery, to do an interview. And we'll take your suggestions in that area. And we'll also welcome your comments and questions, because, boy, there have been a lot going on in the past week and a half or 2 weeks on this show. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And we're inviting people, we're encouraging people to press 1 and ask a question, ask for support in doing a worksheet, ask us to discuss a particular topic, or clarify anything about any of the various tools that are available at whyagain.org. And let us know how we can support you, and let us know what you'd like to have us dig into a little bit more in today's show, and we'll do what we can. Currently, there are plenty of people calling in, listening. Thank you for everybody who's here, and there's nobody yet in the chat room. So we have plenty of time. We have almost an hour. How can we support you? What are the questions that you've been itching to ask? What's a comment you have about any of the shows in the past week and a half, 2 weeks? And because to my mind, there have been some rather powerful shows, and there have been some rather controversial statements made. So how can we support you? What would you like us to talk about today on Mind Shifters Radio? 563-999-3581. Yesterday I was just getting rolling, talking a little bit more about the book Messages of Life from Death Row. It's written by Pierre Pradervand, but it's really just a compilation of letters that he received in his correspondence with Roger McGowan, who's been on death row for a lot of years in Texas. And one of the quotes I was about to read yesterday when somebody put a hand up was, "The winds of grace are always blowing, but you have to raise the sail." And Roger McGowan, sitting in a prison cell, 60 square feet, 6 by 10 prison cell, he apparently raised his sail even though there was no wind moving. And that very act, his decision to stay loving, to learn more about what he could do by shifting the focus of his conscious awareness to create a peaceful, loving atmosphere within his mind, despite all of the abuse and privations of the prison, gave rise to one of the more magnificent experiences that Pierre Pradervand has had. Pierre, who authored the book The Gentle Art of Blessing, and in 2018 he authored another book titled 365 Blessings to Heal Myself and the World. He says Roger McGowan is one of his powerful teachers because of the living example of the application of these spiritual truths. You know, we have a lot of people who come to the support groups, and it doesn't happen as much on the internet show anymore, but there used to be people that would call the internet show, and they would want to debate all of these global, philosophical, theological issues. And as to the best of my ability, I have routinely tried to call people away from that and get us focused back into what are the practical steps I can take to improve the quality of my life. And here's a book, Messages from Death Row, which screams at me the importance, the practical importance. Like Guy Finley, one of my favorite quotes from Guy Finley is, "There is nothing more practical than true spirituality." And here's the proof of that. Here's a gentleman in death row, sitting on death row in Texas for over 20 years, and he has chosen to apply these principles actively, daily, moment to moment in his life. And the result is this wonderful book. Of course, there are plenty of warnings that this is not a book for lighthearted people. I guess that's not the right phrase. For weak-willed people, there's plenty in this book of the horrors and descriptions of the horrors of being in a very violently abusive penal institution. And yet, the beauty of the application of these principles in day-to-day existence in some of the most difficult conditions on the planet, and oddly enough, they're as difficult as they are, it takes it up another level because it's being created by human beings. It's not like the difficulty we have if we live on the plains and a tornado comes through town and wipes out half the town. This is completely human created abusive conditions. And all of it is arbitrary. So, 563-999-3581. How can we support you? How can we answer questions about any of the tools that we've discussed, any of the rather, some would say, quite controversial topics we've had on the show in the past week and a half? Here's a quote from Roger McGowan, January 25th, 2003. What is truly ours can never be taken away. The Creator allowed me to become weak so that I could realize that true strength dwells in oneness with the Creator. So, the idea of the practical application of the tools brings to mind the story of somebody who studied and read and became a great teacher of the scriptures and the holy word, and then began a religion, and it became very, very popular. And so he was like, the equivalent of the Pope. And they amassed all of this wealth, and they decided, we need to go out and do missionary work. And so they created this wonderful large ship, and they started sailing the seas and going from land to land, and they stumbled across this island, a very small island, only a couple hundred inhabitants. And they were living in what seemed to be this very, very primitive life. And they'd clearly been stranded there for many, many generations. And of course, this pious, religious man who knew all the answers decided, we need to go and proselytize, we need to preach, we need to bring them salvation, we need to teach them how to pray, etc. So they had their massive ship set anchor, and then they send their little rowboats out, and they had all of the minions attending to the Pope-like figurehead, and they went to the island, and they found these people. They were very nice, but they seemed so simple-minded. And so they preached and taught, and they tried to teach them the proper prayers to say, to speak to God, and in the style of this religion that he'd created. And then they took their leave. And they rowed their boats out to their big ship, and then they were just starting to lift anchor and set sail, and all of a sudden, someone started calling out to the captain, you can't leave, stop. And they turned and looked, and here were three of these, what they thought were these very primitive people on the island, and they were running across the top of the water Your Highness, Your Holiness, come back, come back. And so, the holiness, the Pope-like figurehead came to the edge of the boat and leaned over and said, "What is it?" And they're standing there dancing on the top of the water saying, we forgot the words that you told us how to pray. And fortunately, the head of the religion, the figurehead, the Pope-like person, was smart enough to realize the idiocy in trying to teach these people anything. And he said, go back to your life. You already know far more than I do. No, we need you to teach us how to pray, as they run across the top of the water. So it's in the practical application. And I'm fine with whatever choice you make. Do you like to just repeat the work, the questions involved in the work by Byron Katie? Is it true? How do you know it's true? Let's flip it around and just keep doing the work. What is that work? That work of Byron Katie is just to simply use the powers of observation to cut through the molasses and the distortions of my thought process and my structures and thought that I've been conditioned into. Perhaps you like to do the Sedona release method. What's that? It's another series of questions that I repeat with patience and with observation. Perhaps you like to use Ho'oponopono. 4 statements repeated over and over again. Thank you, please forgive me, I love you, I'm sorry. And I do my internal cleaning. I'm speaking to myself. I'm speaking to my mind's image of the other person. I'm speaking to something that I might consider as a source, like the Holy Spirit or Ruka Dakucha or God or light or love. And I continually work to take 100% responsibility for every thought and emotion and perception and judgment that I create. Perhaps you like to use the tools of the Dr. Michael Rice's work with whyagain.org and Mindshifters Radio, whyagain.org, and you pull out a reality management worksheet and you specify your true nature, and you remind yourself about how your mind creates your perceptions, and you spell out what emotion it is that you're feeling and what you think is going on in your world that's triggering that, and the thought you're using to create the emotion, and the thing that you know that if the world or yourself or someone outside of you could just change in this way, everything would be better. So you specify the goal you have for yourself or your life or the other person, and you cancel it all, and you breathe and ask to be shown the hidden part of your mind, and you watch the crumbling of the thought structure that's creating the pain that you say you want help getting rid of. It's my thought structure that creates my pain. It's the misapplication of the process of thought that's responsible for every mental and emotional pain and discomfort that I have. We support people in using tools multiple times a day, every day, to take 100% responsibility for and dismantle the structures of thought and the mental emotional discomforts we create by the misapplication of thought. And there are many varied tools that have come down to us over the centuries, and especially, if you search the internet these days, there are many, many tools. I've just listed a few. There's the Science and Health with Keys to the Scripture, which is a wonderful set of tools they're not as precise or concise as Michael Rice's reality management wake-up sheet or worksheet process, which is derived from the ancient Khabouris manuscript and one of the lessons from Course in Miracles that invites me to open a curtain in my practice, put away everything I think I want, my trifling treasures put away, and leave a clean and open space for the Christ mind to come, or in other words, for intuition to give me access to a different perspective that can show me another way to look at the situation that I have deemed is responsible for my pain or fear or sadness. So I'll take a breath and ask somebody to raise a hand. How can we support you? We have 37 minutes left in our first hour of Mind Shifters Radio. What's on your mind? What are you struggling with? What have you had a great success with lately? 563-999-3581. Press 1, and out of the many people who are on the call, you'll be talking to us. We'll have a conversation. Whether you're out in Oregon, or you're off the continent, or you're in California or North Carolina, press 1. We'll have a conversation. And remember, the other thing you can do when you press 1 is say, I really want you to try and get a hold of this person for an interview. And we're okay to reach out to anybody who might have a compatible school of thought, technique that you found particularly useful, whether it's a breathing technique or a meditation technique or, like a somatic therapy type technique. I had somebody recently they'd heard the term somatic therapy and they were anxious to find out more about it and maybe go off and do that. And they were shocked to find out that much of what we do in our therapy involves awareness of the body, increasing awareness of the body, using the early warning signs of tension or discomfort or a change in the breathing pattern as guides for what we then do with our thoughts and our emotions and the application of any techniques. So, 563-999-3581. I had somebody recently that suggested perhaps Russell Brand for an interview. And I was listening to Joe Rogan, who did a podcast with Russell Brand, and it's a 2-hour or 3 hours worth of interview. And it's an amazing example of a genius mind, Russell Brand, who was in the process of destroying his life with, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, all in extreme, excessive amounts. And he realized he didn't want to do that until he died. And he realized there was more to life than just chasing after pleasure and running away from pain. And so if you haven't tapped into some of the more recent Russell Brand writings and interviews, that's another source you could use. You have to be careful if you're searching for Russell Brand, though. He used to do stand-up comedy. He did some movies and a lot of off-color stuff, a lot of swearing and sexual references. But what's happened since he's chosen to clean up his life and tap into the metaphysical, spiritual side of his existence is phenomenal. And of course, that's being a blessing to a lot of people, because many people who are in the 12-step programs are mired in simply avoiding the use of their drug, whereas Russell Brand is promoting that they actually create a vibrant, exciting life for themselves by doing their inner work. I can also recommend, if you are on Dale Allen Hoffman's email list, or if you want to check him out, daleallenhoffman.com, he posted a about a 45-minute video. We may listen to this tonight in our support group. The ancient Aramaic Gnosis of Holy Week and the Children of Light. So it's very recent. It was probably maybe the week before Easter this year. And I'll look forward to asking him about some of the key points in that lecture. You know, Dale went back into the ancient Greek and the ancient Aramaic and started researching the words that have been the meanings of which have been so distorted and misinterpreted over the years. And there's great practicality in understanding the ancient teachings were about applying these things in our lives, just like Roger McGowan is applying spiritual principles in his life. He's not just reading spiritual books to distract himself from the horrors of his condition. He's actually stepping into the practice of choosing the focus of his conscious awareness, using his breath, understanding what he's doing with his thoughts to either create pain or create escaping from reality, or simply dealing with actuality in a more productive way. So, you know, Dale Allen Hoffman finds key words like the word that was interpreted by the Greeks as grace, or the word in Greek for the word grace, was tebuta. And it doesn't just mean grace, it also means gratitude. And so this ties into, you know, Dr. Michael Rice talks a lot about how the ancient Aramaic language was a physics language. It talked about how energies work. And there are a lot of spiritual teachers these days that talk about how you need to be grateful and have the energy of gratitude and the emotion of gratitude, and hold that in your mind and keep pouring energy into it. And then good things will happen. Well, so here's the idea of grace being bestowed upon you, or the effects of grace from some outside force or deity, and it's tied into the concept of holding the energy of gratitude. So I get grateful for my life the way it is, or I get grateful for the good that's going to come, and I create an energetic pattern which allows more of the goodness in my life, and it gives me the experience of the joy or the happiness that I think I'm going to have when I get this thing that I want. And I go for the feeling first. I go for creating the satisfaction. I go for creating the appreciation, the gratitude, the joy for just being alive and aware. And I settle into that energy prior to thinking that I need anything to make me happy. So here's someone with a hand up. Thank you for raising a hand. Area code 828, you're in the air.
Hello, it's Magda from Missouri, and I remembered to turn my mute button off this time. So I bet you can hear me.
I can hear you. Thank you for calling.
Yay.
How can we help you?
Well, I've been appreciating all of the information you've been giving so far, and I'd like to ask you to review that very interesting thing that you have added to, I think, when you do your process with Dr. Michael Rice's Forgiveness Wake Up worksheet, and it's toward the bottom. and it's something like, show me what's going on inside of me. That's what I want. I'd love it if you would review.
This is available. Okay, and I'll be happy to review it here, and I'll let you know that this is available in various places. And
good.
I'm typing it in right now to see if I've already uploaded it to the mindshiftersacademy.org website. And I'm taking some select tools and audio files from my work and from Dr. Michael Rice's work, and moving it over so it's also available on the Mindshifters-academy.org or Mindshiftersacademy.org website. And if you go there and you click on the tab that says Educational Material,
okay,
the second one down says it's the forgiveness pattern for the worksheet cancellation step. And it tells me that I want to keep my breath moving as I say silently to myself. Now, when I have people doing a worksheet in the group, say we're doing the most recent version of the 7-step reality management worksheet, after we read step 5B, and the last line of that is, help me open a direct conscious relationship with and gently remove the denied, dissociated, and projected parts of my carbon-based memory. Before I let people move on to 6A, I ask them to close their eyes and keep their breath moving and silently repeat inside their own mind what I'm going to say out loud. So I'm saying it out loud for everybody in the room, and everybody in the room is encouraged to go within and just follow along, but be saying these words in their mind. So you keep the conscious, logical mind busy with this pattern, which allows something else to go on. And it goes something like this. There are slight variations, but this is what's printed on the website. I cancel my need to be right. I cancel my need for anyone or anything else to change, including myself. I put my conscious, logical mind on the bookshelf for now. I cancel my specific goal in this worksheet, and I ask to be shown the hidden part of my own mind that's actually creating the negative emotion from this worksheet. And now I just place myself in that open, allowing state to watch whatever images come up. And I breathe and I soften and I watch, how old am I? Where am I? Who else is there and what's happening? I breathe and I trust that whatever I see, however disjointed and irrelevant it might seem, is just what I need to see to begin to heal here and move forward. I breathe and remember that it's all old stuff. It's just nerves firing in my brain. It can't hurt me any more than it already has. This means it's perfectly safe for me to see it fully, feel it fully, and question it anew. I want to allow myself to question all the old conclusions about myself or anyone else and use my adult awareness to question those old conclusions anew. And then I just want to breathe and repeat. I cancel my need to be right, and I refuse to make up another image based on this brain content to prove that I'm right. I want to take a few more moments to breathe and ask to be shown what my conscious, logical mind cannot show me. And then I'm going to trust any thoughts, any images, any physical sensations that come to mind as being part of what I need to see to heal here and move forward, and just keep the breath moving.
Nice. That is wonderful.
And then people breathe into that, and people breathe into that, and then they just notice whatever they're feeling. And then at some point, when I feel the energy shift in the room, or I see the person doing on the worksheet has got something going on, I'll tell them to take a nice deep breath, let it all go, scan their body, and then move on to 6A. And just write down what's the strongest physical sensation or emotion that they're aware of after having done that release process. And then we'll move through the rest of the worksheet.
Excellent. Great. Thank you so much. I'm going to definitely make a copy of that to keep right with me until it becomes a very habit for me.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and so the easiest way to get it is to go to mindshiftersacademy.org and click on the link that says Educational Material. And it's the second one down. It's titled Forgiveness Pattern for Worksheet.
Great. Excellent. Okay. Thank you. That was exactly what I needed. I've heard you say that before, and I've just never written it down. I've always been busy doing something while I listen, so I thought it was time to stop and really get it for myself to use. Thank you.
Well, you're entirely welcome and deserving. We have that request from time to time, and it's now available through yet another source. It was on my old website, a little bit harder to find, but this one's under Educational Materials on mindshiftersacademy.org. And
I have, excuse me.
Go ahead.
I found that the hyphen does need to be in there on my computer at least.
It does?
It does. It does.
Okay. Well, it should work through both, but Mindshifters with an S -academy.org. And that calls me to remember that I didn't announce this morning at the beginning of the show that we're having a support group tonight, and it's available through Zoom.com for anybody who wants to join us anywhere where they have internet access. And you can find information about that at mindshifters-academy.org. And there's a tab for the support groups and all the material, all the information about how to sign up and join us is there.
Right. I hope to be able to join you guys tonight.
All right.
Excuse me. Okay. By the way, just a note about Patrick. He is doing very much better. He still hasn't been released, but he's up and walking and doing a whole lot better. So
wonderful.
Yeah. So everyone's good intentions and prayers have been working very well, I'd say. Well, I hope to join you tonight, and I will go back onto mute and listen for someone else to call in. Thanks.
All right.
Dr.
Well,
Tim.
as my grandmother would say, from your mouth to God's ears, let somebody else call in.
I know. I love it when people call in.
Yeah, it really it makes the quality of the shows very different. So thank you for calling in and asking that question. And is there anything else we can do for you before you go on mute?
I'm not thinking of anything at the moment, so I'm gonna say no, thank you,
all right.
And bless you.
All right.
Okay.
Blessings.
Bye-bye.
So 563-999-3581. Maybe you have no idea what she was talking about. Maybe you're not completely aware with the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. Maybe you want to question something about that forgiveness pattern, or what is this website, mindshifters-academy.org. Maybe you've got an entirely unrelated question that we can help you with. 563-999, whatever that is, 3581. Press 1, and just like Magda, we'll be having a conversation. Well, how can we support you? Magda still has her hand up, but I won't play that trick of clicking her microphone again. So we have a forgiveness process. We have 3 earliest memories of conflict. That's one of the tools that is really powerful, especially in the context of knowing how to do the forgiveness process, the reality management wake-up sheets. And that rarely gets talked about, but it's one of the cadre of tools that are available at whyagain.org. And we are strongly encouraging people to go there and click on the red and white bullseye. And once you get to that new page, scroll down and explore, because it's got worksheets galore. It's got links to the PowerPoint presentation by Bill Costantino. It has links to a host of audio files of shows like this one. It's got the mind goal management worksheet process, the responsibility communication tool. It's got the diagram of the mind for the filter over intentions and the filter over perceptions, and so much good stuff there as food for thought, as actual practical tools to apply, that it is amazing that Dr. Michael and Jeanie Rice have made this available for free. So we are encouraging people on a regular basis to take advantage of this powerful resource. And if you do and you find it's of value, think about contributing. You can contribute financially through the donate button, or you can contribute with your skills. And every bit of it, even if all you're doing is applying these tools in your life, it's greatly appreciated by everyone here on this team. So 563-999-3581. We have 15 minutes left, plenty of time for an enlivened conversation. And it could be enlivened by your thoughts and your voice and even just your topic. You know, we listened to an hour and a half of Krishnamurti in Tuesday's support group in Woodstock, and that kind of triggered me to look up some of his YouTube videos or the YouTube videos that people have uploaded of old movies of Krishnamurti doing talks. And in one, somebody asks, do you believe in God? Is there a God? And if so, how do we connect with him? And if not, why not? Another one, someone asks him, what do you make of this homosexuality business? I've traveled 2,000 miles to ask you this question. And I get a chuckle out of, and he does too, you can tell when he's reading the questions and chuckling about them. This work that we're promoting, the tools that are available at whyagain.org, are specifically designed to help you tap into the part of your mind, the intuitive connection to a higher mind, a more integrated, creative, loving mind that can start to provide you with your own living answers to these questions, so that you stop following a teacher or a guru, that you do your own work, that you're not so worried about, what does Dr. Tim think about this? What does Michael Rice think about this? What does Guy Finley think about this topic or that topic? Because you're able to apply specific tools to manage your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own energies within your body, which are distractions or they are guideposts, and step into a process that allows you to have access to the very kinds of downloads, insights, wisdoms, whatever you want to call them, that are filling these fabulous spiritual books that you're reading and these great teachers that you're listening to. And when it comes through you, through your life experience, through your personality, it's going to be the perfect answer for you. And it's going to be a wonderful addition to the energy of consciousness on this planet. We're encouraging people to do their own work so that they can move into the expression of that creative energy, that life force energy that wants to express uniquely through them in this moment. The Way of Mastery has an entire lesson on that. Lesson 4 in the Way of Mastery just talks about this energy of creation that wants to express uniquely through you in each moment. And what that energy is, in that lecture they use the word desire. But it's this very subtle yet powerful energy that can send a shiver down your spine, or, we used to call them goosebumps. Now people like to call them God bumps, raising along your arms, that help indicate to you when you're on the mark and when you're off the mark. And by learning to apply the tools to remove the garbage, what's the garbage? Negative self-talk, bitterness, hurtfulness, resentment, grief, anger, shame, guilt. By removing those energies from my mind and from my body's energy system, which has so many of those energies stored in it from my life experiences and from my bloodline, the more of those energies I remove, the more clean, clear, open, and some would say transparent, that the conduit becomes between my conscious logical mind and that resource of the one mind, of the creativity. Again, I have a lot of people that ask me, why do you spend so much time? Why are you donating your time on the radio show? Why do you donate your time to these 2 support groups? And the simple answer is because if I didn't use the tools and teach other people the tools, I would drift away from using the tools. And it's the active application of these tools that has dramatically improved the quality of my life in ways that words cannot describe. So that more and more, as events in my life that I used to think the events would produce all of this upset in me. More and more, I've awakened to the actual process, which is that I'm creating the upset, or I'm bringing with me, well hidden under the conscious awareness, I'm bringing with me into each situation the upset that I experience soon after an outside event. And because they happen so close together, my mind wants to make this cause and effect relationship between the outside event and the upset I've created. But we know through active study and application of tools that the outside event doesn't cause the upset I have in me, that there's an internal process that gets triggered by the interpretation I choose to put on this outside event. The upset in me is not even triggered by the outside event. It's triggered by the interpretation I put on the outside event. Here's the evidence for that. Has anybody ever spilled water in your lap and you didn't get upset? The answer is yes. There are times when you're having a good day, or it's someone that you're totally infatuated with and it's a first or second date, and he or she spills water in your lap, and you think it's hilariously funny, and you reassure them, don't worry about it, this is an old shirt or whatever, because the interpretation you're putting on that event is, it's no big deal. And if it's some famous Hollywood star that you've had goo-goo eyes over for decades, and you meet them and they spill something on, in your lap or on your shirt. Now, not only do you not get upset, you want to take that shirt home and never wash it. Right? This is, pick your favorite movie stars. This is her water. This is her wine. This was her tomato sauce that she spilled on my shirt. So it's actually observable that the outside event is not even triggering my upset. The thing that triggers my upset is the interpretation I place on the outside event. And then, let's say it's happening because I'm on a second or third date with someone I find totally absorbing and beautiful and fascinating and charming, and I'm madly in love with him or her. And they spill something on my clothes, and I say, oh, no, don't worry. And then I laugh it off, and there's zero upset even created. I don't even have to suppress upset. It's not created because the interpretation I put on the event is, this is a silliness. This is a part of one of the most magnificent evenings I've ever had. Maybe the stain on my shirt, I can make it look like a heart in my mind, and so I say, this is just a representation of my true love for this other person. And then 3 years later, after we've been dating a while, or we're married, or we're living together, or whatever the situation is, something similar and not even as powerful, a little bit of something is out of place or spilled on a tablecloth or on my shirt. And the interpretation I throw on it is, this person is so rude, they're not even paying attention, they don't love me anymore, and I create a tremendous amount of upset from the very situation by putting an entirely different interpretation on it. So it's observable. Please step into observation. I create my own upset. I am not triggered by outside events. I'm only triggered by the interpretations I choose and place on the outside events, because it's that interpretation which is energetically connected to the reserves of upset that I carried with me into this situation, or is connected to the thoughts that I create and pour enough mind energy into to actually create the experience of the emotion, to generate the energy that we call neuropeptides and emotions that I feel physically. It's all an inside job. And the more I learn these tools and apply them, the more I gain this muscle memory for catching myself at the earliest warning signs of upset and step into the breath, or step into the EFT tapping, or step into the goal canceling. The easier it is for me to let these outside events come and go, and even if a little storm starts to brew, even if a little flash flood of upset begins in my energy system, I can step back and just let it go. I can withdraw the interpretation I've placed on the event, or choose a more gentle, loving, playful interpretation for the event, and immediately feel the effects of diffusing the upsetting energy. Guy Finley tells a story about a park ranger. He tells a lot of different stories about park rangers. Park rangers have the job of continually circulating throughout the park and watching for problems, whether there's an imbalance in the nature, or there's a disruption that's going on between the tourists in the park and the nature, or between tourists and tourists. And so there's this park ranger that's out in one of those ultralights flying over out in the southwest, where they've got all of these mountainous ranges and these ravines and gullies, and it's very dry and parched most of the time, but anytime a storm comes by, it can create flash floods. And the park ranger's out there flying around, and he sees from his high elevation, he sees, here's an old prospector trudging along, heading into a ravine. Now, anytime it's completely dry and sunny, the ravine's fine. Prospectors go there all the time. But the old-timer prospectors should know better than to go into a ravine anytime there's a possibility of rain, because when the floods hit, the flash floods happen, the ground is so parched that the water doesn't seep in and sink in, and it just rolls around, and that's how these flash floods are created and how so many people get hurt. And the park ranger is seeing this old-time prospector trudge along, pulling a mule. The mule's loaded down with all this gear. The dust is flying off the mule, and every time the prospector takes a step, another cloud of dust comes up. It's just so parched. And the prospector has his head down, and he's just trudging ahead. And the park ranger says, that guy should know better than this, because just over the next mountain range, here comes a storm cloud. So the park ranger tries to buzz him and yell at him and get his attention, and the prospector just waves at him as though he's trying to say hello. And the park ranger parks his ultralight up on a ridge and tries to yell and scream and get his attention, to no avail. And sure enough, the flood happens. And before just minutes transpire, and the park ranger sees a 25-foot wall of water rushing down the ravine, headed right for the prospector. And he thinks, oh my gosh, this guy's life is over. He's dead meat. And he kind of half closes his eyes, half peeks through his fingers, and this huge 25-foot wall of water comes rushing toward the prospector. And at the last minute, the prospector raises his head and looks at the wall of water and then says something. And the wall of water parts just like in biblical times and goes right around the prospector and the mule and just rushes on down the ravine. And the park ranger is beside himself, and he scrambles down the side of the mountain when it's safe to do so, and he runs over and catches up the old prospector, and he says, what the heck just happened here? This was a miracle. I can't believe it. What did you say? And the prospector said, I just looked up and saw this storm coming and said, please go on without me. That becomes possible with repeated application of these tools. When you open an email and you feel that flash flood of emotion arising in you, if you've been practicing with these tools, if you've increased the practice of your awareness that it's all an inside job, you can make your home in the breath and just let that storm move right on without you. You can see the movement of your stormy thoughts and not be moved by them. And that's what we're encouraging people to do every day with the application of these tools. And I'd like to remind us all that we come from love, we're made of love, we are love, and everything else is false. Jeanie, how are you?
I am good. Thank you, Dr. Tim. Good example. I took notes there. I'm going to have to look up that story of Guy Finley's. Good example.
All right, well, I will hang up and dial back in so Michael can come on as host, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, you have a good day. Thank you. All right, so welcome everybody to the second hour of Mind Shifters Radio. And today is Thursday, April 25th, 2019. And their calling number is 563-999-3581. Press 1, and that puts you in queue. And I am going to host today. Actually, Michael has one more thing that he's doing in Ohio, and then he's headed back this direction. And so by me taking the show, it's going to get him on the road an hour sooner. So welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. And I am Jeanie Rice. And if you have a question, press 1, and I'll be glad to take your question and answer it to the best of my ability. And Michelle, it looks like you're on with me too. Hi.
Hi there, Judy. I believe you asked me to host today, so I am here to do that, but I must have misunderstood.
Oh, that's okay. I actually said Friday, but that's okay. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. Are you feeling better?
Yes, I'm feeling much better. I actually was telling Michael yesterday, there was a point on Wednesday, like 1:45, that I woke up out of sleep and I did a body scan, and I'm like, that's weird. I feel good. And I'm like, oh, that must be sending some healing love, because it woke me up out of sleep and I felt okay.
Oh, awesome. Well, good.
Yeah, and I was like,
well,
those people. I know what they're
You just said, go on without me and let that flood go on, just like Dr. Tim was just reading.
Yeah.
Yay. Well, I'm glad you're here. I needed you to cover for tomorrow, but actually that schedule has changed, so we can talk about that after the show. And one of us will do the show tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. So if someone presses 1, there's nobody in the chat room. Chat room's doing something really weird nowadays. They've changed around how it lands. So it's like right in the middle of the page, and you can't see the callers until they speak or whatever. So it's really kind of different.
Yeah, I don't prefer it.
Yeah. So 563-999-3581 and press 1. We don't have anybody there. We've got 57 minutes. So while I'm waiting for somebody to press 1, I'll just say, go to the website, whyagain.org. It's WHYAGAIN.org. And if you click on the bullseye in the middle or the start here in the upper left corner, either one, they'll take you to where all the worksheets are. And there's lots of information there. I've actually updated the what tools do I use when, and so that's now like a 3-pager on there. And I'm adding a couple of other pages, so come back to the website often and see what's new, see what's going on. And our schedule for the summer, of course, I'm going to be here in Bristol, Tennessee, or Bristol, Virginia, and Michael's going to be going back up here in a couple of weeks. And the Food Fund Forgiveness begins May the 31st. We're asking people to arrive on May, and there'll be a 16-day Food Fund Forgiveness and work. And Ken and Linda have been there for months and months now doing all kinds of work. So it'll be totally different than it was last summer. I know everybody worked their little buns off last year getting the property to look good. But we do have a building that needs to be put in shape before the actual intensives begin. And so that'll probably be one of the main projects. And then after Food Fund Forgiveness, there's a few days off, and then there's a 3-day personal code training. The prerequisite to take that is that you've either done teacher's training or that you're registered to do teacher's training or laws of living. And then following that 3 days, and it's 3 full days, so you'll need to arrive a day ahead of time on that one. And then the 9-day why, which is filling up. I mean, Michael's going to have like full house. Every building's going to be used, including eternal support. I think there's 20-some people, 26 people or something like that, going to be at that 9-day. And then there's the 9-day teachers training following it. So, and then we have 4 intensives that we were actually looking at the potential of doing maybe in the Smoky Mountains or something in the fall or the winter. So let us know if you're interested in any of those. They're actually listed if you click on schedules. And so, does nobody have a question? Does Michelle and I do we get to do a monologue here? Oh, we had a hand go up. 828, you are on the air. Who do I have? Hello, 828.
Hi, Jeanie. I was on mute. It's Magda.
Oh, hi. Hey, lady. How are you?
Oh, doing very well. We're having a lot of rain here, so everything is just as green as can be, and it's just lovely. So,
nice.
Yeah. You were just talking about the potential for, before I tell you that, I just want to mention that I saw Patrick yesterday. He is out of the hospital, but he hasn't been released. Yeah, he hasn't been released to go home yet. He's in a care center very close to the hospital, but he's very grateful for everyone's incredible attention and support and prayers. He's doing very well. So he just needs to regain his strength. And so it's all good. It's he's coming along very, very well. So I wanted to tell you all that.
Awesome.
And then,
Thanks.
yeah. You were just talking about potential workshops and intensives that you might do in the Smoky Mountains or somewhere else. And I would love it if you would talk about your women's intensives. You know, I attended the very first one that you did, and it was awesome. So I'm just trusting that you're even more awesome now at doing it because you've had more practice, right?
Oh, thanks. Actually, let's see, I've done one since I was at Michelle's, but I did one at Michelle's house too. And we had, I think, 13 women. 2 of them escaped about day 3. But
Michelle,
it was like stuff comes up, and if they get the opportunity to run, they run. That's why we like having intensives at places like Heartland, where it is not easy to run away when you're there.
Hi, Michelle. I didn't know you were still on. Hi, girl.
Yeah,
I'm glad you're
co-hosting
there.
the co-host.
Lovely.
I would have escaped if it wouldn't have been my own house and all these women were there.
You attempted to, and I told you no, that you had made a commitment and you had to stay.
Yes.
But we find that when people, and all of us do it, when stuff comes up and we don't feel like we're ready to face it and deal with it, then we'll either try to run away geographically or take something to lower our vitality so we don't have to look at it. And go ahead, Michelle.
Because I'm having all these flashbacks, Jeanie, and I remember Mitzi made a half pan of raw brownie dough, like a cacao date, right? Magda, it was gone that Sunday night, like cleaned off.
Even
I know.
If it's unhealthy, if we can tell ourselves, okay, this is sugar,
Right. No, 5 pounds of raw fudge.
I know.
But it has definitely been a journey for me. And anybody if you go to the Why Again website, at the top there is a link that says Healing the Whole Woman. If you click that, it will take you over to my website. And I've got pictures of the different workshops that we've done. I have actually done it in 2 different formats, 3 different formats. One is if there's already a group that has a group of women. I've done this several times, like a church that would have, maybe their women's retreat or something like that. And they'd have, one of them had 44 women, one of them had like 46 women. And I was the keynote speaker, so I had 3 days to present to them. One of them actually gave me topics that they wanted to make sure that I incorporated in what I was doing. But then on my own, I have done a 4-day. So it usually starts on Thursday and goes Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then I've also done the 9 days. And if someone has done one of the 9-day intensives, that also qualifies them to go into the teacher's training, because I cover the same thing as Michael does in a 90-day why. And so there's a link on my website that says what's included in a 4-day, or what's included in an 8-day or a 9-day. And then there's a history page. So there's a lot of information out there about what I do cover. And it's exciting. And it just kind of has evolved that a lot of women's issues, of course, come up because it's women only. And the way that I started was back at the one actually that you attended, the very first one that I did. The lady that hosted us at her house for that, she had attended a regular 9-day. And some topics came up around, the female anatomy and functions and things like that. And I was talking about it. And afterwards, when we took an intermission, she came up and she said, not all of us are comfortable talking about things like that in front of guys. So you need to do one of these with just women so that we can talk about whatever. And has evolved where it's been some of the intensives that I've done have focused more towards abuse, whether it was mental, physical, whether it's sexual or spiritual abuse or whatever. And then some have, like I was talking with Susan Bingham the other day on the radio show, some have evolved into talking about either abortions or miscarriages. A lot of sexual abuse seems to come up in a lot of them. And so it's just a safe space where women can talk about anything and everything. And then we work on the forgiveness process and how do you get beyond that? How do you let it be an experience? You can't forget that it happened. However, you can choose whether you let it run you or not. And like Tim was talking at the end of the show, you can, be more the observer and say, okay, this happened. And, from experience, it took me a long time to, I had a sexual abuser. And he was actually my husband. When I got married when I was 16, and from 16 to 19 for 3 years, he abused me. And in my mentality, it was like, well, he's my husband. He can do whatever he wants to with me. And it took me probably 5 years doing this work that I got to the point where if I ran into him on the street, that I wouldn't want to kill him. And I'm just being honest. When I finally got out of that situation, getting to the point where I could let go of the hate, not that I could forget, not that it pardons him, not that I, let him get off of it or get away with it or whatever, but just that I don't let it run me emotionally. It doesn't control, that I become bitter or that I stay in fear. And that was a big one for me, was working on fear. So it's just a safe space for women to be able to delve into any of that comes forward for them. And, I hope that I can do one of those. Michael's actually talking about doing a Laws of Living, and we're looking at different places around here, close by. Like there's a place between here and Cherokee, North Carolina called Lake Junaluska that has a really nice facility. There's one over in Elizabethton, Tennessee that has like cabins and lodges, and they can furnish meals or you can do your own. So there's a lot of options around here. And then the one I did it was just actually a 3-day in 2017, and my mom actually attended that one. That was the summer before she passed. And so that's a really nice facility too. So we're just looking at different places and getting pricing. Of course, that's the big thing. When we do something away from Heartland, then we have to pay the rent of the building and all of that. So we're checking it out and contemplating what we can and can't do, working from here and still being able to, take care of my dad and care for Aria and just working it all in. So, but if anybody's interested in any of that, absolutely let us know. Yes, I'd be interested. Then we're also looking at, the Smoky Mountains itself, like over in Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge area.
That's beautiful.
So,
I'm so glad that you went. Yeah, I'm so glad you went into a little more detail, because I think women who are listening would be able to understand it, that it is different than having a mixed group of male and female people attending. That it is more private and more geared toward things that, as you said, women might not feel comfortable speaking about in the presence of men. Very private issues. So cool. And you are an excellent facilitator and teacher. That is number one. I have to say, and I will be honest, I was a bit amazed with that being your very first. I was just kind of not surprised, because I know how smart, intelligent, kind, and gentle you are. I just didn't know you could put all of that together on your first excursion out there with an intensive food. Man, it was great.
Magda,
you.
I can second that one because I feel very privileged to have been there for that commencement, and how how strong my memories are of like Nancy sitting next to me on the couch, some our breath sessions with the Wendy's girl, and just all these little.
That was hilarious.
Snippets.
We were talking about escaping. There was, now it's all women, and one of them's like she needs to go to the drugstore, to pick up something, and
remember the backstory though, Jeanie, is of the breast.
Yeah, I know. But then after she gets back, I find out she went to, it was either Burger King or Wendy's one, and she got, now this was just, like on day 4 or something of this intensive, and she goes and she gets like a Big Mac and a large fry and a 32-ounce Coke, and she whoops it down from the time she leaves the fast food restaurant to the she gets back to the house. I mean, it's like her stuff was up and she just needed to suppress. And I was clueless. I mean, there were other people that knew that that's what she did, and people were getting angry because she didn't keep to the food program. And I'm like, what is going on here? It's like I was kind of clueless, and I was the leader. But so we got to process that. That was funny.
Yeah.
She wasn't even a person who drank pop. That was the part I remember. It was Wendy's, because I'm like, she's super size.
Yeah, it's pretty funny what people will do just to keep from going there. So thank you, ladies. I appreciate you all bringing that up. And it's always a privilege. We always say, we teach best what we most need to learn. And so I always say, well, you all see what I get to learn, what I need to know. And I learn something every time I teach it.
Well, and that was one of the things I so much appreciated about your presentation, is that when your stuff came up, you were totally present to it. And therefore, you modeled for all of us how to be in the grips of an issue and stop and work with it and take support. That was a pretty amazing and wonderful part of my experience with that, because I think when we model for other people or other people model for us, it's just part of that group helping each other with our energies. So thank you for that part too. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, sweetie, I'm gonna move on and listen, and I'm so glad that both of you are there today, and you have fun, and I'll just be listening. Bless you both and everyone.
Thank you. All
right. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. We have another caller, area code 205. You are on the air. Is this Kenny?
It is Kenny. It's just Janine.
This is Jeanie, like in a box.
Jeanie, I'm sorry. I got a friend named Janine.
That's okay.
I appreciate the last caller. And while you two were talking, your giggles were just like kind of overflowing joy. It kind of tapped my overflowing joy, and I was really happy to hear y'all talking. And the thing came up about abuse, sexual abuse, and emotional, spiritual abuse and violence and stuff. And I've got an issue. I've worked on it for over 30 years, along with quite a few other abusive experiences. And the last one I got through dealing with, it took me about 3 days to get through it. It was really tough. But I have one that I have never really discussed with a lady as far as what I need to say. And I feel real comfortable with you. What happened was when I was about 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old, my dad had just passed away. He died right in front of me, and I thought it was all my fault. And my aunt, I used to stay with her because Mom drank a lot. She was a heavy drinker, and she'd go off, and there's nobody left there. My aunt used to make me take a drink of whiskey and she'd tell me to swallow it. And as I was swallowing it, she would hit me in the stomach and tell me, I'm doing this because you won't drink one day. And she'd make me take a puff of a cigarette. Yeah, maybe take a puff of a cigarette, and then told me to swallow the smoke or inhale the smoke, and I did. And this idea, she would hit me in the stomach with her fist, and she said, I'm doing this so you won't smoke one day. And it turns out I did both. The sudden violent smack, I guess you might want to call it, left me with so much anger at her and so much hurt that I guess most of my life I was angry at women, for Mom and my aunt. And they used to get drunk and make me stand in the corner in the room, and they would tell me to stand on my toes, and they'd all laugh at me, the people that were drinking and drunk. And then somehow I seemed to have went away, Jeanie. It just seemed like I went away. Just kind of, I melted into nothing. And I don't know if I'm just doing this for self-pity or if I just need to keep talking about it. It hurt so bad.
Okay, so it brought up hurt.
Yes.
It brought up a very deep pain that you were holding. And, you know, especially when the abuse comes from someone that we trust, someone that we, you know, felt like, you know, they're supposed to love me and they treat me this way, you know, and of course we know love is who you are. It's not really something you do, but, you know, as a small child, usually around the age of 3 or 4, we give up who we really are, the knowing of who we really are. It's still there. It's just we push it aside because we think that we need to be or do something else to be approved of, and we confuse approval for love, and we start looking for that approval. So let's just walk through a quick worksheet on this. So take a deep breath. So I'm looking at the abbreviated worksheet. This is also on the app, so you don't need to pull it up. Just be with me on it.
Okay.
So it starts out, so you would say, I, Kenny, who am love, have through denial. Oh, go ahead. If you want to repeat it, that's cool.
No, I'm listening to you.
Okay. Cool. Through denial, have trained my carbon-based memory to show me the lie that my feelings and my giving up of the experience of my essence love is caused by my trigger. So in this case, let's do the one on your aunt, okay?
Okay.
So it says who or what are you focused on? So the trigger is going to be your aunt.
Right.
And so think of her. And then in the worksheet, it always has like a parenthesis with little lines, and that's for your initials because every worksheet's really about you.
Right.
And then you just described what happened, which is the next step in it. And so that is, you know, that she would make you take a drink or take a smoke, and then she would hit you. Okay, so think about that and then take a breath, okay? Because one of the ways we hold on and lock things into our tissue is by holding our breath. So you want to make sure you consciously breathe as you're doing worksheets. That's why throughout the worksheets it'll say breathe.
Right, okay.
And so what's the feeling? And each feeling would be a different worksheet. So what would be the key feeling when you think about that, that's resonated when you think about her hitting you and doing that?
Sadness.
Okay. Take a
Sadness.
breath. Okay. And what's the thought around sadness? You know, every feeling has a thought behind it.
And I wanted you to love me instead of betray me.
Okay. Now you're jumping to the goal. That's going to be the next one, what you want. But the thought, so that she betrayed you. So betraying you would be Okay.
Yeah.
Take a breath. Yeah. And then what would you want to do to either punish her or yourself?
I'd like to kill her. I hate her. In my heart, my heart, I hate her. In my gut, I hate her. I feel hateful feelings toward her.
Notice that you said in your gut.
Yeah.
That's where you're holding, you said she hit you in the stomach.
Yes.
And notice that's where you're holding the hate for her. And
yes.
and that's where, where your physical issues would show up. So for your own sake, you want to let it go. It doesn't mean, there's a big difference. Forgiveness is you're going to go in and remove the sadness and the hate and things like that from your being. It does not mean that you let her off the hook or that she's not to be held accountable or whatever. So there's two different meanings. A lot of people think, well, if I forgive them, that means that they've just gotten off the hook for what they did to me. No, if somebody does something that's inappropriate, then they need to be held accountable for that. And
she's
so,
deceased.
okay, so holding the hate and stuff for her, she probably doesn't even, you're the one that's feeling it.
Yeah.
And
right.
Okay, so acknowledging that feeling, though, that what you're wanting to do to punish. And a lot of times I'll do a worksheet, and my punishment's actually, I'm just going to avoid it, which is what I did for years, was not even go there, not even think about it. I don't have to lay eyes on him again, so it doesn't matter. And avoiding it is a punishment to ourselves, because then it shows up in our other areas of our life. It's going to manifest. So then the next step in the worksheet is I choose to love truth and willingly go through the physical, mental, emotional symptoms of healing. As we put energies into our system that don't belong, they create symptoms like pain in the gut and everything. And as you're healing, as you get vital enough for those things that you pushed down, you didn't want to look at how she had betrayed you and the sadness it brought up and the fact that you wanted to kill her and you holding that hate. And so you think, okay, I'll just push that down and pretend like it didn't happen and just go on. But then it's going to manifest. And so as you're, whether it's physically your gut saying, okay, I hurt, you need to get this energy out of here, or whether it's emotionally or whatever. And so as you get vital enough for those things to come back up to be forgiven, physically they may look the same. So being willing to go through that is a big step. And that's where you look at, okay, how do I know if I'm in a healing process or a disease process? You look at, have I been doing more of the right things? Am I moving in the right direction? Had I just hit a new vitality? Because as you get more vital, you can look deeper. And so the more vital you are, the deeper the issues can come forward. And so a lot of times we can get lost in the circumstance and instead of paying attention to where we're going. And so you want to, look at, okay, I'm moving forward. I'm doing more of the right things. I've gotten more vital, so I know that this is just the next level. And then the last thing you ask yourself is, just before I hit the new vitality, have I craved the drug that I suppressed it with? Now, that could be, if you drank and that was your drug of choice, I'm going to just drink enough so I don't feel it, or if anger or whatever, a lot of people it's sugar or, self deprecation. It's, all kinds of things can be a drug. Anger is a big drug. Could be ice cream. It could be, whatever. So whatever your drug of choice was, so it may come forward and you have a desire to go to that, to suppress it again. Because what happens is when we suppress those thoughts, feelings, emotions, the drug that we use to suppress it is also, and it's like a crystal held in our body. And so as we're healing, those crystals melt and they let it go. And, so the molecules of, if it's alcohol, the molecules of alcohol will come up and be in your face. So being willing to go through it and saying, okay, I know that I'm in a healing crisis and this will pass. And then you move on to the third one, which is your goal. And you said your goal was you wanted her to love you, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And so take a breath. Now the part, this is on the short form, and actually I took this from an adaptation that Magda had done, and I love it. So you wanted her to love you so that you could what?
So that I could be seen, heard, and be alive, and feel good, and happy, to feel human, and a bunch of things like just to feel good, to feel human and worthy or something.
Right. So notice that, you just named seen, heard, feel happy, feel alive. You named a whole bunch of things that are all hinged on I want her to love me.
Yes.
So each one of those is another worksheet.
Okay.
And what we'll find is a lot of times probably 99.9% of the time, the goal that we hold for someone else has a underlying goal. We want that from them so that I can, and fill that blank in, and then you've got a whole other set of worksheets. But we don't want to go to those yet. We want to stick with the original one because that can be a distraction. Anywhere in a worksheet, if you feel yourself getting distracted or too many thoughts or whatever, it's a way of getting away from what's really going on so that you don't have to look at it too. It's an avoidance. So we're going to stick with you wanted her to love you, but then we'll make side notes of why, because that'll be additional worksheets.
Okay.
So then I choose to connect to my original being, love, instead of my upset. And we use the story of the rose and the butterfly, and that story's on the website. You can download it.
Yeah.
And there's a rose and a butterfly, and they meet, and they fall in love, and they have an awesome time, and then one day the butterfly flies away. And because the rose thinks that there's nothing greater than the love of the butterfly, the rose uproots itself to give chase. What's going to happen to a rose if it's uprooted?
It's going to pass. It's going to
die. Yep. Because it made something else more important than staying connected to its source. When we put our source is love. It's who we are. It's the stuff we're made of. It's our being. And when we put anything else more important than that, when we say my sadness or my anger or my hate or whatever is more important than staying connected, we initiate our own demise. And so we want to return to our original being and say, okay, this is more important for me to be connected. And so then we want to do that first and get reconnected. And I tell people, whatever it takes, so I want you to stop for just a moment, close your eyes, and take a deep breath. Some people can reconnect by thinking of that newborn baby. Some people don't have a newborn baby experience. So I tell them, think of going to the ocean.
I had a good one.
Okay. All right. So we got a lot of rats. Okay, so I'll tell a lot of people, if you can just, maybe if they're an ocean lover, I said, then close your eyes and imagine being at the ocean with your toes in the sand and hearing the waves and smelling the ocean breeze. And, so I'll take them there. Or if they're an indoor person, I'll say, imagine sitting in your favorite chair and feeling the material under you and listening to a fire crackling in the fireplace and smelling a candle burning. So whatever it is that can take you to that calming, safe, peaceful space to get back to being connected to who you are.
Newborn,
we always want to stop for a moment in the worksheet and do that.
Okay.
Because then the next step, so go ahead and do that and tell me when you're ready.
No, I've been doing as you're talking, and I'm going to those places within as you speak.
Awesome.
The pain is past for the most part. And I was going to say, and it's the point where we invite Ruka to Kucha to help.
Yeah, well, first you're going to cancel the goal. And,
Okay.
you know, a lot of people say, well, why don't we invite Ruka first? And that way we'll have the power to cancel the goal. But, you know, Ruka doesn't force us to do anything. We have free will. And so the first thing that you do is you have to be willing to let it go. And then when you're willing to let it go, then you invite Ruka to help you take it. And then she'll do it. So the first thing you do is you want to collapse your false reality and get back to your actual mind and the truth about you and the truth about your object of attention. Cancel my goal for my aunt to love me. Can you do that and then take a breath?
Sure, I'd be glad to do it.
Okay. So I cancel my goal for my aunt to love me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's right.
And then I invite Ruka or Spirit or Creator or God or whatever you want to call it to incline me toward healing, to restore me to my original nature love, to assist me in keeping love present, to help me come into direct conscious relationship with and remove the dissociated projected parts of my carbon-based memory. So when we say, I cancel the goal for her to love me and I invite Ruka to help me with all of this, and then take a breath. So do that and then tell me how you feel.
There's a transformation it's began processing about halfway through our discussion that I was beginning to feel lighter and lighter. And right now, my shoulders seem to have dropped, and my body has relaxed, and I feel that love again in my heart. And I am not innocent, but pretty clear and stuff. A lot lighter.
Awesome.
Like clear mind.
And you know, you said innocent. Innocence actually inner sense. And so getting back to that inner feeling, that inner sense of who you really are.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you're doing a worksheet and you get to this line, a lot of times you'll feel lighter or you'll feel better or see the light at the end of the tunnel, or you might just feel neutral. Or if you've really gotten into a deep process, you may feel worse. Because you may have now seen, you know, oh, this has happened 20 times with 30 people, and, you know, and so you might even feel worse when you get to that. So it's not about the right or wrong answer. It's about what you really feel so that you can see, you know, where you need to go from there. It may just open up for the next worksheet.
That's right. I still feel some a twinge of the anger in my heart now. The anger's out of my gut, but I still feel a little bit of anger in my heart, at the bottom of my heart. It may be grief.
Yeah, and it probably is because, you know, anger is a drug that covers, if you can get someone to drop the anger, usually underneath it is pain and fear and sadness.
Right.
And
I agree.
And like I said, I probably did worksheets, you know, the first 5 years after I was introduced to this work, before I got to the point where I could actually run into this gentleman on the street and not want to kill him. So it's like, you know, 77 times 70 worksheets until you're done with it.
Yes, ma'am.
And so just
be gentle with so much.
Be gentle with yourself. Okay. And so then you want to, there's two more parts. So then you want to look at, it says, when have you violated that goal for yourself? So when have you not shown yourself love?
Lots of times.
Perhaps whenever you've drank or when you've smoked or when you, you know, whatever that.
When I drugged,
you know,
and when I smoked and drank,
And so you have not always loved yourself. And then you want to acknowledge us for creating truth and perfect love. And so then you want to structure a loving goal toward the person. Now, it's not something for them, it's toward them. Now, the goal that you did up in number 3 was totally up to them whether that goal got met. You wanted her to love you. You didn't have any control over that one. But this one is a goal that you are going to set toward them. Now, even though she's not in her body, your goal might be, I want to create a space in me where, you know, I can let go of the hate that I feel for you. I want to, you know, if the person were alive, it might be something like, I want to open communication where things can be settled, or I want to hold you accountable for what you've done in a loving way. And, you know, so it could be a various number of things. In this case, since she's not in her body, it might just be that, you know, you're going to acknowledge that, you know, she had some issues going on too, and you want to lighten yourself by letting go of the hate and create a more loving.
Okay.
Right.
My thought toward her is I would like to see her move on in her spiritual growth wherever she is, for her life to get better wherever she is, and to get closer to God, her way, and I don't want to hinder her growth. So I just want to let her go now. I just want to let her go in peace.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's 7. That's 7. And you worked me. I appreciate you walking me through the step process. It helped cleared up some issues that I've misunderstanding I've had toward it, and I want to save time for someone else to also get in some work if they need to. And you've been very helpful. I love you and Mike so much, and y'all mean the world to me. And if you keep up the good work.
Thank you, Kenny. Thanks, Kenny. So much. You take care.
Okay.
All right, continue to breathe.
Bye-bye. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, too. Bye, Jenny.
All right. So we've got 16 minutes. If someone else has a question or comment, press 1. Michelle, if you have anything to add to offer Kenny. Five 563-999-3581 and press 1. All right. No one has a hand up. No one has any questions. You know, a lot of times we run into situations where we think that there's no hope, where, you know, nobody understands what they did to us. And like I said, it's not about letting them off the hook for whatever it was that they did. A lot of people do a lot of crazy things. But holding emotions inside of us around it, the way that we perceive it and think about it. I use this story often of, in the scriptures, there was the boat and the disciples, and there was this awful storm, and they were afraid. And they saw Yeshua walking on water, and Peter's like, you know, I know if you ask me to step out, I can walk on water. And he's like, well, come on. So he steps out of the boat and he walks on water. There is nothing changed about the circumstance. The same storm is going on. Nothing has changed except where Peter's got his focus. And when he starts looking at the circumstance again, he starts looking at the storm, then he sinks. And so it's the same with us. That is actually just a story saying, you know, you may have a storm in your life. We all have different storms. And so you've got a storm going on right now in your life. Are you going to walk on water, keep your focus where you're going, stay connected to your being, and walk on water? Or are you going to sink in the midst of the circumstances? The choice is up to you. It's totally what you do with your mind. And we have tools that are free, that if you use them and put them to work in your life, you don't have to believe anything we say. Use the tools and you'll see that they work. And you can walk on water. I think literally and figuratively. And like the example that Dr. Tim gave at the end of the first hour, you know, being able to say, you know, water, go on around without me, and it split and went on around. We have more power than we think, probably more than 99.9% of the people ever even attempt to bring into activity. And so what's holding you back? What is it in your mind, in your life, that you're hanging on to, that you are putting more importance on hanging on to that and being in misery than letting it go and living an abundant life? You know, when Yeshua said he came to give life more abundantly, there's an abundance of everything. There's abundance of poverty. There's an abundance of wealth. But there's also abundance of health or an abundance of sickness. And sometimes there are a lot of those things that we have control over. We just submit to it. So what is it in your life? Is there something we can help you with, something we can support you with in looking at and letting go so you can move forward more abundantly? 563-999-3581 and press 1. That lets us know that you want to talk. A bunch of people already on the switchboard, but then if you press 1, it will put you up to the top of the line where I know that you're just wanting to talk and that you're not just listening. We'd love to hear from you. It actually makes the show a whole lot easier on us, but it also assists other people. You know, you're not in any kind of a situation on your own. Everything that you share, everything that we share, assists someone else who's maybe not brave enough to ask the question. So ask your question. What can we help you with? If you want to contact me, the link is also on our website, but my email is Jeanie, Jeanie, @whyagain.org. And we had a hand go up, and it's showing up as a Skype caller, so I'm not sure. Is this Peter or is it Bob?
It is
or
Peter. It's Peter who just fell into the water.
Oh, well, can we reach you a hand and pull you up? What can we do
I
for
don't
you
know
today?
if you can, but it was worth a call.
Awesome. What's going on, Peter?
Well, I was listening to you and Kenny, and also the talk before that, and everything together seemed to move me somewhere. And this what you were saying about avoidance.
Right.
And I'm pretty good at that as well. And I'm at the position now where I'm not ill, but I'm not well. I don't know how you say that in English, but not completely well physically. And I am creating that ever so often. And I was actually working on that this morning, and I wrote the punishment thought, avoiding. And I really would like to get a hold of this one, and I haven't been able to. So that's why I'm calling.
So you, ask yourself the questions, you know, have you been doing more of the right things? I know you've been on the show a lot. You're coming to Heartland. You know, that in itself, once you commit to go to an intensive, and Michelle's on the line still, she can attest to it. Once you commit to go to an intensive, it's like you've already opened up the door for everything to happen. I think one of the couple of the intensives Michelle's been at, actually, she has been in a healing crisis during the intensive, actually. So ask yourself the full questions, though. Are you doing more of the right things? You're doing your work spiritually. You're eating well. You're taking care of your body. Are you doing more of the right things? Can you answer yes to that, or
yes?
Are you self-sabotaging?
I can definitely answer yes to it, and it seems like I'm hearing the different people calling in. It's like my whole family is going to come to the intensive. So yes, I'm well aware of that. I see that's going to happen.
And then before you got symptomatic, had you hit a new level of vitality? Because like I was telling Kenny, you know, when you get well enough to a vitality enough, then the depth, the deeper, more intense issues can come forward.
I was going through that.
And
I can't really remember vitality increase, but I know that chocolate. I mean, I'm looking everywhere in the house for chocolate. So definitely.
Is that your is that your craving, right?
Well, I don't really have craving, I'm saying, and right now it's like big time. And when I was a kid, I was chocoholic.
I was just going to say, can you remember, we had a girl one time that she was talking and that she was craving ice cream and that she didn't eat dairy. What was that? And then she touched into when her dad would, come down on her as a child or whatever, then afterwards he would take them for ice cream to make up for it. And so she realized she was working on dad issues, and so what naturally would come forward with that was ice cream. So can you remember a time as a child there maybe being issues and things, and chocolate was your cover-up for it?
No, not really.
No?
No,
Okay.
I cannot.
Just
I have a remembrance
of
me, my father, and my grandfather going to football games. I always received chocolate, so there was that, but I don't have a recollection of shutting things down with chocolate, no.
Okay. So are what issues are coming forward right now that you're not wanting to look at?
The situation is that on Saturday I'm going to attend a 10K run, so like a competition, and this is the scenario that when it's time to do something like that, and when I wrote this morning, when I am to be at my best, that's when I get just a little bit ill, not completely well. So I cannot.
Is that so you have an excuse in case you don't do your best, that you can blame it on that?
Yeah, I've looked at that, but I mean, I really would like to go and do this run. I really would. My conscious mind says I really would like to go and do this. Realizing that it's totally important whether I do the run or not, but I really would like to go and do it. And what's bugging me now, again, it's like totally why is this happening to me again? I keep recreating physical illness of some sort so that I cannot be at my best.
Okay. So what is the thought behind, or when you think about being ill and not running the race at your best, what's the feeling that you think, that you feel?
Hopelessness is one thing.
Okay. And what's the thought behind the hopeless? When you think, okay, I'm going to run this race and I'm not at my best, and the feeling is hopelessness, what's the thought?
I've written this 10,000 times and I can't think of anything, right?
Okay, is it along? Right? Yeah, it sounds like it. So would it be that I can't do it right, or I'm not going to win, or I'm not good enough for this, or
well, it's hopeless. Everything is hopeless. I never get the chance. Because what I looked at this morning, the goal is to be loved. That's when you were hearing you talk with Kenny. So wanting to be loved, wanting to, and in order to be loved, I have to perform.
Because it's approval, it's not love. Yeah.
So
is there somebody that's going to be there at the race that you feel like their approval is crucial for you?
No.
No?
No. And I was
just going to say approval of yourself. How many times do you were saying you wanted approval and love, but how many times in your life, or especially around performance, do you not approve of yourself?
Yeah, bingo.
If there's
Being
not
perfect.
somebody there, if there was going to be somebody there watching you and it's like, oh, they've got to see me at my best and know that I'm, but if there's nobody there that's actually going to be in the audience, then it's got to be for yourself. And so I would do worksheets around, who told you had to be perfect to be acceptable?
I did, it seems. I did.
Yeah. So take a breath and think back to when did you start this train of thought that you had to be perfect? And it probably goes all the way back to, like I said, usually when we're about 3 or 4 years old, we give up just being who we are because we think we have to be something else to be approved of. So you may have to go all the way back to when you gave up you.
Yeah, it seems like it's my logic made up that I had to be something else in order to be having the love that I wanted to be there.
Yeah.
So I made that up, that I wasn't enough.
So are you willing to let that go and know that you are enough just because the Creator put the breath of life in you? You are enough. You are His creation. And, when we look at, and all of us go through that time where we'll think, I'm not good enough, or I'm not enough, or I need to be more. And, in a way, we're kind of dissing the Creator, like, you didn't do something right here because I'm not good enough the way you created me. And we are. And we just need to tap back into that and just stop and breathe and just know that that's your very essence. It gets buried in all of the other clutter. And this is just a storm for you right now. And you can walk water. So take a deep breath. Cancel the goal to be perfect. Cancel the goal.
Like you say I can walk water, and instead I'm the one creating the storm.
Yep. And most of the time, that's what we all do. We create our own with our own thoughts and realities. Something happens, and then we'll sit and think about it over and over and over again and get ourselves all worked up. And it's like it's all in our head. It's all what's going on inside. And so since we're the problem, we're also the solution.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's invisible to me. What do we have now? Thursday? Yesterday, Wednesday, I started to feel, I don't feel all that well. So I didn't see it coming, but then all of a sudden, the fruits are there, the fruits of the storm.
Right. We've got about 25 seconds, and the show's going to cut us off, Peter. Breathe, do worksheets on it, tap back in. You are perfect. You are an awesome being. And if you need to, call back in tomorrow, and let's continue, okay?
Okay.
Sending love, embracing you. You're cherished.
How powerful is Cox Internet? Powerful enough to let your band members in Vegas, Phoenix,